On December 1, 1948, a man in a sharp suit was found dead on a beach in Adelaide, Australia. No wallet, no ID. Every single label had been cut out of his clothes. In his pocket, investigators found a tiny scrap of paper. 2 words, torn from the final page of a rare Persian poem. The words meant, "It is finished." To this day, no government, not Australian, not American, not British, has ever officially confirmed who this man was, why he died, or what that scrap of paper really meant. This is the story of the Somerton Man, one of the strangest unsolved deaths of the 20th century. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why even a DNA breakthrough in 2022 didn't fully close the case. It was just after 6:30 in the morning. A jeweler named John Lyons was walking along Somerton Park Beach when he noticed a man lying near the seawall, propped up against the rocks. He looked relaxed, almost like he was asleep. One arm rested casually behind his head. His legs were crossed at the ankles. Lyons assumed the man was drunk or just sleeping off a long night. He walked on. It wasn't until another passerby noticed flies gathering around the man's face that anyone realized something was deeply wrong. By the time police arrived, the man had no pulse, and nothing on his body could tell them his name. His pockets held almost nothing useful: a used bus ticket, an unused second-class train ticket, a comb, cigarettes that didn't match their own packet. And strangest of all, every tag, every laundry mark, every identifying label had been carefully cut from his clothing. There was no wallet, no watch, no identification of any kind. In 1948, that almost never happened by accident. And when the autopsy began, the doctors found something inside his body that would haunt this case for the next 7 decades. The pathologist, Dr. John Dwyer, found the man's spleen was abnormally enlarged, nearly twice the normal size. His stomach showed signs consistent with poisoning. Yet no toxicologist in Australia could identify the substance. Some experts later theorized it might have been a rare poison called digitalis, or possibly an undetectable barbiturate. But 70+ years later, the cause of death has still never been conclusively proven. Police released his photograph nationwide. Thousands of tips came in. Nothing matched. His fingerprints weren't on file anywhere in Australia, Britain, or the United States. Then, months later, a discovery at the Adelaide train station would change the entire shape of the investigation. A brown suitcase had been sitting unclaimed in the station's cloakroom since before the man's death. Inside, investigators found a stenciled name, T. Keane, but no one by that name could ever be traced. The clothes inside even had their labels removed, exactly like the ones on the body. There was a strange thread used for repairs that matched a type used by tailors, not ordinary households. And then, months after that, the detail that turned this from a strange death into a worldwide obsession. Sewn into a secret pocket in the dead man's trousers, police found a small, rolled-up piece of paper. Printed on it were 2 words in elegant type: Tamám Shud, Persian for ended or finished. It had been torn from the final page of a rare edition of a Persian poetry collection called the Rubaiyat. And when police finally located the exact copy it came from, found discarded in the back seat of an unlocked car nearby, they discovered something even stranger written on the inside back cover. 5 lines of seemingly random capital letters. A code that, even with modern computing power, has never been definitively cracked. Before we get into the code, the phone number hidden in that same book, and the nurse who may have known exactly who this man was. If you're enjoying unsolved mysteries like this one, hit subscribe because we cover one every single week. Now, back to the case. For decades, cryptographers, including teams connected to US and Australian intelligence, tried to break the code scrawled in that book. Some believed it was a Cold War spy cipher. Adelaide in 1948 sat uncomfortably close to a top-secret British and Australian rocket testing site, and the timing, barely 3 years after the end of World War II, with Cold War tensions rising fast, made espionage theories impossible to ignore. But there was something else in that same copy of the book. A faint impression of a phone number, pressed into the back cover hard enough to leave a mark, even though no pen had ever touched the page directly. That number led police to a woman living less than a mile from where the body was found.
Her name became one of the most debated details in the entire case. She was a nurse. When police showed her a plaster cast made of the dead man's face, witnesses said her reaction was unmistakable. She appeared visibly shaken. Yet she denied knowing him, and she asked police not to release her name publicly. They honored that request for decades. For 70 years, her connection to this case remained one of the most tantalizing dead ends in Australian criminal history. Then, in 2021, investigators tried something no one had ever been allowed to do before. With permission finally granted, the body, buried in Adelaide Cemetery since 1949 under a headstone simply reading "The Unknown Man," was exhumed. Scientists extracted DNA from hair still preserved inside the original plaster death mask, a cast made of his face back in 1948, which had survived in a museum collection for over 70 years. Using a relatively new technique called forensic genetic genealogy, the same method that's cracked decades-old cold cases across the United States, researchers built out a family tree based on those DNA fragments. And in July of 2022, for the first time in nearly 75 years, a name surfaced that matched.
Researchers Derek Abbott and Colleen Fitzpatrick announced that DNA evidence pointed to a man named Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker born in 1905 in a suburb of Melbourne, not Adelaide at all. Webb came from a working-class family whose bakery had collapsed during the Great Depression. He trained as an instrument maker, played amateur football, which may explain the unusually developed calf muscles the original coroner found so puzzling, and in 1941, he married a young pharmacist named Dorothy. By most accounts, the marriage was deeply unhappy. Letters and recollections describe Webb as a man drawn to poetry, often dark in tone, some of it reportedly fixated on the subject of death itself. By 1947, Webb had effectively vanished from public records. According to Abbott's research, the so-called code in the back of the book wasn't a spy cipher at all. It may simply have been a list of racehorses Webb had bet on, jotted down in shorthand. A far more human explanation than decades of espionage theories ever offered. But here's the detail almost no one talks about. As of today, the South Australian government still has not officially confirmed this identification. Forensic Science South Australia and the state coroner have never released a formal, verified statement confirming Webb's DNA conclusively matches the body. Researcher Derek Abbott has said publicly that he's confident in the science. But under Australian legal procedure, an official cause of death and an official identity still technically remains open. Which means that even after the DNA, even after the name, even after 75 years, the Somerton man case is, technically, still unsolved. We may finally know who he was. We still don't fully know why he died, what the code truly meant in his own mind, or why every single tag on his clothing was so carefully removed. Some mysteries get solved with a single discovery. Others, like this one, only grow stranger the closer you look. If you want to go deeper into Cold War-era cold cases that still haven't been officially closed, I've got a full playlist linked right here. And if this is the first video of ours you've watched, subscribing helps us keep digging up cases like this one every week.